On to that, and then we'll get started. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Megan Lefew. I am an extension specialist with the Center for Profitable Agriculture. Our center is part of UT Extension and a partnership between the university and the Farm Bureau Federation. We are very fortunate to get to work with lots of different specialty crop producers across the state in many different capacities through our work with value-added agriculture, direct marketing, and agritourism. So we were very interested when we saw the news release come across that there would be a new program called Marketing Assistance for Specialty Crops that would be administered through USDA Farm Service Agency. And of course, we were very curious, as many others, about what this programs entails. So we reached out to our State Farm Service Agency representatives, and they were generous enough to agree to spend some time with us this morning and share a little bit about what they know about the program and how it can benefit our producers here. So I'm very excited to introduce the Farm Service Agency State Outreach Coordinator for Tennessee, Bailey Bain, who is going to take the reins from here and introduce some more of her colleagues and share about the program. So Bailey, I will turn it over to you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me try that again, Bailey. Zoom is interesting when it works. Will it allow you
Okay,
to do that now? Very good. Thank
it
you.
will. Thank you so much, Megan. Yes, I am Bailey Bain, the State Outreach Coordinator, and with us today also from the Farm Service Agency is our Farm Program Specialist, Tori Campbell, who will kind of be spearheading this presentation, as well as our Farm Program Chief, Christina Bowles. So hopefully, if you all have any questions, maybe we'll be able to answer it, but if not, we will get back to you on an answer after we research it a little bit or get with our national office since this is such a new program. So, with that, I will just go ahead and turn it over to Tori so we can get started with the program.
Hey, good morning, everybody. As Bailey said, I'm the MASC or the Marketing Assistant for Specialty Crops Program Specialist for the state office service agency here in Tennessee. And we have just a quick summary of the program, some slides to kind of explain it a little bit better. We will talk about sign up. Well, if it'll click over, there we go. We're going to talk about sign up information, who's eligible, and what you have to do to be eligible, application overview and documentation. We'll talk a little bit about what the MASC payments are going to look like or how they'll be calculated, and then we'll have time for some questions at the end of the presentation. If at any time you can't hear me or my slides stop working, anything, just somebody let me know and we'll try to fix it. We don't have a lot of experience with Zoom, so we'll hope that it works. And there's some bad weather rolling through my area, so hopefully the internet will be good. So the authorized funding source for MASC is the CCC Charter Act. The purpose of this program is to aid in the expansion of markets or create future markets for specialty crops. So that's what the big question was, what does this program actually do? And it is to offer financial assistance so that people who are already producing specialty crops or are in the process of growing them for 2025 can expand into new markets, develop new markets, but then also kind of hedge higher costs. The program sign up began on December 10th and it will end January 8th. So it's a really quick turnaround period. Our programs normally last a little bit longer. So that's why it was important for us to be able to meet with you all so you can push the program out to producers and have those discussions with them and have them contact their county offices to apply for this program. The program year is 2025 for this program, and the payment limitation is 125,000 per person or legal entity. This is very standard for most of our programs. So now we'll get into eligibility. First, we'll talk about eligible crops. The only crops listed on this slide are considered eligible. You have fruits, including dried fruits, vegetables, including dry edible beans and peas, mushrooms, and vegetable seed, tree nuts, nursery crops, Christmas trees, floriculture, culinary and medicinal herbs and spices, honey, hops, maple sap, tea, turf grass and or sod, and grass seed. If you have a question about whether your crops or your producer's crops are eligible or considered a specialty crop, you can go to the website right there. That's the AMS website. And they have a definition of what a specialty crop is, as well as a long list of crops that are eligible. So this slide provides examples of crops that are ineligible for the program, and we've broken them down into some categories that you might be more familiar with. But in the chart, you'll see example of ineligible crops: field and grain crops, forage, hay, and cover crops, oilseed crops, other crops, and intended uses, other crops, intended uses of forage, grazing, etc., crops left standing, or other agricultural products. To be eligible for the MASC program, a producer must be in the business of producing a specialty crop at the time of application and be entitled to an ownership share and share in risk of producing a specialty crop that will be sold in the calendar year of 2025. For a producer to be considered in the business of producing, the operation must have assets and resources needed to grow, harvest, and market a specialty crop in the calendar year 2025. So that's important, and we'll talk about which years you're going to pick for sales to fill out the application and whatnot. But the main gist is they have to be producing a specialty crop for the calendar year 2025. A producer must be one of the following to be eligible: a citizen of the United States, resident alien, which for purposes of MASC means a lawful alien as defined by 7 CFR Part 1400.3. They have to be a partnership organized under state law, corporation, a limited liability company, or other organizational structure organized under state law, an Indian tribe or tribal organization as defined in Section 4B of the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, or foreign person or foreign entity who meet all requirements as described in 7 CFR Part 1400. The regulations in 7 CFR Part 1400 subparagraph E are applicable to foreign persons and legal entities, foreign and domestic, containing members, stockholders, or partners who are not U.S. citizens or resident aliens that own more than 10% of the legal entity. I know that's a lot of words. If you or your producers are concerned with any of these, this slide deck is going to be made available to you. You can come back and reference those. So ineligible producers are federal, state, and local governments, including public schools, persons or legal entities who did not have an ownership interest in an eligible specialty crop, persons and legal entities that are not in the business of producing a specialty crop at the time of application, a ceased operation, such as deceased producers or dissolved entities, which includes deceased producers that passed away prior to completing an application. This is a little bit different because a lot of our programs are for crop years that have already happened. And so a lot of the times deceased producers are able to apply, but because this one is for a specialty crop that's going to be sold in 2025. That's why the deceased producers are unable to apply. So now we'll talk about eligible sales a little bit. For producers who grew and had sales of specialty crops, will choose either 2023 or 2024 calendar years. For new producers that did not have sales in either 2023 or 2024, they may use 2025 sales that they expect to have based on their farming operation, which we'll talk more about the new producer later as we go through. But for producers who have already been producing specialty crops, they'll pick 23 or 24. For new producers, they are able to use their expected sales. Eligible specialty crop sales only include sales of commercially marketed raw specialty crops grown in the U.S. by the producer. Sales of specialty crops purchased for resale may be included only if there is a change in characteristic due to the time held. For example, a 2-inch plant is then sold as an 18-inch plant 4 months later. So there has to be some type of change in characteristic. To be considered a 2023 or 2024 calendar year sale, the producer must have received a payment for the specialty crop during the applicable calendar year. So for 2023, if they choose 2023, they're going to use all the sales they received in calendar year 2023. We're not looking at crop year. It's calendar year for the sales. Producers with sales from either 2023 or 2024 will also include their FCIC and NAP payments for specialty crops for the 2023 or 2024 crop year, respectively, in total specialty crop sales, regardless of when they were received by the producer, and are included in eligible sales to more accurately represent what a producer would expect to market in calendar year 2025. This accounts for crops that would have been marketed or sold in the selected year, if not for the losses due to disasters that were covered by federal crop insurance or NAP. So what this is saying is when you're calculating sales, you're adding up all the sales that you made for your specialty crops in 2023. You're looking at sales sold in the calendar year. You also can add any crop insurance indemnities or NAP payments. Those look at crop year. So 23, you're looking at your 2023 specialty crop sales. But then for those crops that you sold, if you received any NAP payments or any crop insurance indemnities, then you will look at the crop year for those and add those to your sales. And that helps create a better picture of what you should have or could have made, thus impacting your 2025 payment. And we can talk more about that if y'all have specific questions. Eligible sales only include the value of raw specialty crops, and the portion of the sale derived from added value would not be included in the sales. The portion of the sale derived from adding value to a specialty crop, such as sorting, processing, or packaging, is not included with eligible sales, just the raw specialty crop value. And we've got an example of that on the next slide. Leonardo is a winemaker that grows grapes to process into wine and does not sell the grapes. In 2023, Leonardo sold wine that used 500 tons of grapes. Using the National Crop Table price, which is FSA's database that holds crop prices, yield. They could also use NASS, the National Agriculture Statistics Service, RMA prices. A lot of different ways you can locate prices. But for this example, they use the National Crop Table price at $552.50 per ton to determine the portion of sales attributed to the raw unprocessed grape. Therefore, his sales would be $276,250 for a year. So you're just getting the raw grape price, not the sale of the wine. Another example of this is Donatello grows cucumbers that are sold to a market both as raw cucumbers and as processed pickles. Total specialty crop sales are derived from the market sale for the raw value of the cucumbers. Donatello would use the quantity of cucumbers processed into pickles and the price of raw cucumbers sold at market to calculate the total specialty crop sales of all the cucumbers. Again, he's not including his pickle sales. He's calculating the price of the cucumbers he used to make his pickles that he sold. Eligible producers who market their specialty crops through a subscription or membership service, such as a community-supported agriculture model, may include the portion of the membership or subscription fees received for specialty crops in their eligible sales. So now we'll talk a little bit about new producers. New producers may use an estimate of their 2025 calendar year specialty crop sales in lieu of actual 23 or 24 calendar year sales. To be considered a new producer, one of the following must apply. They either began producing specialty crops in 23 or 24, but did not have sales due to the immaturity of the crop, began producing specialty crops in 2024, but did not have a complete year of sales, or is beginning to grow specialty crops in 2025. We'll go through an example of each of these criteria for being a new producer. This is an application that began producing specialty crops in 2023 or 2024, but did not have sales due to the immaturity of the crop. So Raphael began growing pineapples in 2024. However, the crop will not be ready to harvest and sell until 2025. Therefore, Raphael did not sell any specialty crops in 24. He has a contract in place for the entire 2025 crop. Raphael would use expected 2025 sales. This is an example for application that began producing specialty crops in 2024, but did not have a complete year of sales. Shredder LLC started farming near the end of 2024 and planted their first crop of cold season vegetables. They experienced some sales. However, the LLC did not have a full year of sales. Shredder LLC has a purchase agreement for the crops that will be grown. Therefore, Shredder LLC will use their 2025 expected sales. And then lastly, this is an example of a producer beginning to grow specialty crops in 2025 or for 2025. Casey Jones purchased land that included a pecan grove in late 2024. Casey has never commercially produced pecans, nor did he have 2024 pecan sales on the land he purchased. Casey must provide documentation demonstrating the pecan grove will be used and maintained as a commercial operation to be considered an eligible producer. If he meets the eligible producer requirement, then 2025 expected sales may be used. To be eligible for MASC, a new producer must have one of the following: a legally binding sales contract or purchase agreement for the specialty crop, or evidence that at the time of application, so right now, a specialty crop has been planted and is expected to be harvested and sold in the 2025 calendar year. All new producers must provide acceptable documentation that shows the producer is in the business of farming at the time of application and intends to sell a specialty crop in the calendar year of 2025. Expected 2025 sales must be based on realistic projections that are supported by acceptable documentation demonstrating the producer's ability to achieve the expected sales and their ability to grow, harvest, and market the expected yield or inventory. For new producers who have entered into a legally binding sales contract or purchase agreement for the sale of their specialty crop, their 2025 expected specialty crop sales must be based on the terms of that contract or agreement regarding the total sale amount for the price and the amount of inventory or production. For new producers who are growing a specialty crop intended for sale in 2025 who do not have a contract or agreement, their expected 2025 specialty crop sales must be based on their specialty crop acreage or inventory that is planted at the time of application and published yields and prices, such as the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation established data, FSA established national crop data, and National Agriculture Statistics Service or local sources. So that's what I was mentioning earlier. There's several different sources that producers can use to locate the prices and yields if they're going to use expected 2025 sales. So now we'll talk about the application process, what documentation producers need, and then how those will be processed. All producers wishing to receive a MASC payment must submit one application nationwide that includes their total sales for all specialty crops. As we have done in prior programs, if the producer is a member of an informal joint venture, much like our last example, each member of the informal joint venture will submit an application for their sales of the specialty crops. New producers will also have to complete a supplemental form, the FSA 1141, along with supporting documentation. And I don't think I said the application form number for the MASC application is FSA 1140. And then for new producers, that 1141 is what's required as well. A producer may submit an application using any of the following methods: in person, by mail, electronically. They're really pushing box in one span. And so if you would like to submit it electronically, contact your local county office and they can talk to you about that process. This is a screenshot of what the MASC application looks like, the top part of the page. This is the producer agreement. So when they sign the application, they're agreeing to these things, and we'll go through each of those. So by signing the FSA 1140, producers are agreeing to comply with and acknowledging the applicant is subject to all provisions published in the NOFA, or the Notice of Funds Availability, that they are in the business of producing a specialty crop at the time of application, that they are entitled to an ownership share and share in the risk of producing a specialty crop that will be sold in the calendar year 2025. That a MASC payment will only be made with respect to sales for specialty crops grown in the United States by the producer, to provide USDA access to all documents and records necessary to verify the accuracy of the information provided in this application, including those in possession of a third party, such as warehouse operator, processor, or packer. That the application may be disapproved if the producer fails to provide a complete application or any information requested by FSA within 15 days of the request, and to comply with payment limitation, adjusted gross income limitation, and other applicable rules by submitting the additional required forms, which we'll go through those as well. So this is another section of the FSA 1140. The highlighted portion there is where you'll see the producer select which year they're putting on the application for their sales, either 23 or 24. New producers will do 25, and then they'll just put that specialty crop number there. By signing the FSA 1140, producers are acknowledging that providing false certification to FSA is cause for disapproval of the FSA 1140 and is punishable by imprisonment, fines, and other penalties. This is the FSA 1141 new producer expected worksheet. After the producer has gathered all the relevant information for their 2025 expected sales, this worksheet is completed to determine their expected sales. The producer will enter the crop and type in item 3, the intended use in item 4. For yield-based crops, they would enter the expected acres they plan for 2025 in item 5 and the expected yield for the crop in item 6. In item 7, for yield-based crops, would multiply the acres by the expected yield per acre and enter that value here. For inventory or dollar-based crops, you would enter the amount of inventory they expect to sell. And again, just as a reminder, all new producers must complete this form and provide the documentation required to prove the numbers that they've put on the form. And so here's a list of total sales documentation examples. So this is not just for new producers. This is if the county committee has reason to question the certified sales number that a producer puts on an application. They can request additional documentation to prove the sales number on the application. The producer has 15 days to comply with that request. And this is some of the stuff that they can turn in. New producers can use this too, but it's not just specifically for them. Sales receipts, I won't go through all of them. Ledgers of income. A Schedule F can be used, but if you see down here at the bottom, if a producer turns in a Schedule F, we also have to have the documentation that they used to get to those numbers on the Schedule F. So the scale tickets, the weigh tickets, anything that they use as settlement sheets to get to that sales number that they themselves or their accountant put on their Schedule F, we want to see that information too. And then this is also just some more documentation examples. A lot of these you'll see NAP records, crop insurance records, acreage reports. These aren't required, but they can be used if additional documentation is requested and can be used by new producers to support their expected sales. And I also want to point out, this is photographic evidence down here at the bottom left. Say you've got a new producer who has assets in the process of growing a crop or going to sell a crop in 2025, but they don't have any sales, obviously, because they haven't sold previously, but they also don't have a sales contract. Photographic evidence is probably going to play a key role in them being able to prove, no, I do have this crop planted, it's in the ground, or, we've got seed started for it. So you can really emphasize that to producers, or if you yourself are applying, county offices can look at that too. Because I've had a few questions from county saying, well, how are they going to prove it if they don't have a sales contract, or if they want to sell at farmers market, how are we supposed to, get their yield, or how do we verify it? So that's pictures is a good way. So here's some deadlines for the MASC program. The application deadline is January 8th. The new producer worksheet and documentation for that is also due on the same day, January 8th. Eligibility forms, are due January 8th of 2026. So they have 365 days to get in their eligibility forms. However, we encourage them to get those forms in at the time of application. They did this for past programs. There were some lags, and it had to do with putting dates in our system. And producers didn't know, county offices forgot to tell producers. So it was, 10 days late, and it caused an overpayment or caused the producer to not get paid. So this allows 365 days to get all of those dates and all those eligibility forms in, but encourage your producers to complete them at time of application. And then, of course, as we already talked about, the CLC requested documentation. If they request documentation, they have 15 days from that request to turn that in. So here's the forms that are required for the MASC program. Of course, the application and then the new producer worksheet. Everyone must have a farm operating plan, a CCC 902 on file. 901, which is just member information for legal entities, only applies to entities. The 941, which is the AGI certification. And then certification of income from farming is optional. That is if your operation makes over $900,000 a year, you can certify that 75% of that is farming, and it kind of waives that requirement. And then, of course, the AD 1026 certification is required. So if all forms and information are correct, reasonable, and submitted by the deadline, the county committee will approve the application and the producer will receive information in the mail regarding payment. If it is determined that any of the information as certified on the 1140 is not reasonable or is questionable, evidence may be requested from the participant. If the evidence provided by the participant differs from the information certified, the county committee has authority to make adjustments. If a MASC payment resulted from an erroneous information provided by the participant or any person acting on their behalf, the payment will be recalculated and the participant must refund any excess payment to FSA with interest calculated from the date of the disbursement of the payment. So that's saying if the county committee requests documentation, the documentation shows or turns up different calculations than what was certified to on the application, the county committee can adjust that. And if it lowered the payment, then the producer is required to pay that difference. The county committee will disapprove the 1140 if any of the following occur. Program eligibility requirements are not met. Person or legal entity applying is determined not to be an eligible producer, or if FSA determines that the applicant intentionally misrepresented information provided on their application, the application will be disapproved and the applicant must refund the full payment to FSA with interest from the date of disbursement. If FSA 1140 or 1141 or any of the supporting documentation was submitted or postmarked after January 8th, 2025, the following handbook provisions for equitable relief to accept late file applications apply. The COC will also disapprove the 1140 if any of the following occur: evidence the applicant did not have reported ownership, share, interest in eligible specialty crop, or if the signature requirements were not met. So now we'll do a quick payment overview. The payment producers are paid based on 5 payment tiers associated with their sales. The sales ranges have been determined. However, the payment factors associated to each range will be established once all applications are received. And so I've got an example that goes through here. But since we do not have a payment factor, we do not know what these payments are going to look like. Keep in mind that payments may be reduced to the 125,000 payment limitation that was mentioned near the beginning of the presentation. And a payment factor may be applied if applications exceed the allowed funding. So here's an example of how, if a producer comes in and reports a specific number of sales, how it will be calculated. So if a producer reported $450,000 dollars of total special crop sales for their elected year, FSA would calculate a payment equal to the sum of the very first range. So $49,999. The amount of sales in the first range would be multiplied by the percent payment factor A, which will be eventually a number when they figure out what those are going to be. 50,000, the amount of sales in the second range, multiplied by percent payment factor B, And then the remaining amount, $350,001, the amount of sales in the third range multiplied by percent payment factor C. Which now looking at that, I don't think that that's correct. I think this 50,000 is supposed to be that high range. But anyways, you get the gist. That's how it'll be calculated. So you'll get this payment factor for the first 50,000, then you'll get this payment factor for the next 50,000, and then so on and so forth. And then those are added up to get the payment. Unfortunately, we don't know the payment factors, so we don't know how high the payments are going to be, what the payments are going to be, but they also don't know how many people are going to apply for the program. And so until they know that, they can't set those payment factors. That's all I have. I know it's a lot of information. Some stuff you may have heard of before, some stuff you haven't. If you have questions, we can discuss those. I have the link to the local FSA county office. If you talk to producers or you are a producer and you want to apply, you can click on that link, select Tennessee, and then click on your county if you aren't already in contact with them on a normal basis. They'll be able to assist you. They've had all the same training that I have. And if you want to apply, get in and apply because the deadline's coming up quick.
Hey, Tori.
Yep.
We got some questions in the chat. And I will just tack on to Tori that if you do go in that county office or contact the county office, make sure to make appointments because we know they are quite overwhelmed with various programs and especially this one. So just be patient with them and make that appointment. And yeah, they would be happy to help you. But the question in the chat is, we had a complete crop failure in 23 and 24, which was peaches. Can I apply with projected 25 sales?
All right, hold on. I pulled the chat up. I need to be able to
read it. Yeah.
Yeah. If we have multiple specialty crops with full revenue.
The one right above it was the one I read to you.
Oh, that question was asked to national office. It was asked in a way that said, what if there was a disaster in 2023 and 2024? So that the producer's sales was not indicative to what they normally would sell in either year. Can they apply as a new producer essentially, or can they use 25 sales? They said no. Because 2025 is specifically for new producers. Did you, or to whoever has this question, did they only grow peaches? Is that the only specialty crop grown for that operation? And you don't have to, I'm going to put my email in here. So if you have questions that you don't want to ask here, you can shoot me an email. But yeah, I would have some follow-up questions for that before I told you, like, for sure you can't do that. But the example that I gave,
yes,
they did
only
say
peaches.
No. Okay. Yeah. Again, I would have some follow-up questions, but a similar question was asked and they said no, they would not be able to. All right.
Would it be worth them contacting their county representatives to check and work through some of that?
Yes, they can. But they're going to tell them this, they'll ask me and then I'll have the same answer. Just who is that? Nikki? I put my email in there. Shoot me an email, and I'll get with you and we'll talk more about that. Because that's very specific. So I like I said, I'll got some more questions and we'll see. If we have multiple specialty crops, full revenue, partial revenue, which year should we apply for? I would assume the projected for all three. Full revenue for 23. If you have full revenue in 23, you would use 2023. It's whichever year, it's 23 or 24, whichever year best represents your operation.
So if you compared your revenue and revenue was higher in one year than the other and payment is based on your revenue, you would probably want to submit your highest revenue year. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes. Which we don't know the payment factors yet, but it seems that the higher your sales, the higher your payment would be. Pumpkins qualify, yes. Megan, I think, is going to send out the slides or make those available to you. Oh, she already responded. Are we competing nationally? Yes, this is a federal program. It's available to all the whole US.
But it sounds to me, Tori, that this isn't like a competitive grant program where you would like in a grant program, you would submit a proposal to use the funds for specific things and then
Oh,
certain
no, yeah.
proposals are funded. So that's not the case this time. So it's not necessarily competitive, but the payments will be based on how many people apply.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, no, they're not competitive. It's just a program. You come in and apply. If you're eligible, um, they calculate the payment based on that table that I showed you. But no, they're not gonna, as long as you're eligible and you submit all the forms, they're not gonna say, hey, no, you can't. You don't get money, but they get money. That's not how our stuff works.
So a related question is, what can the funds be used for? So basically that becomes the producer's money that they can use for their operation.
That's correct. Do I have any graphics for this program? There is a fact sheet. I don't know if Bailey sent that to Megan, but we can get the fact sheet out. And there's also like a reference card that's shorter than the fact sheet. You can also post that on social media.
Yes, I sent those out to the stakeholders. TDA was a part of that group, but I can definitely forward on to whoever else that needs it.
Perfect. Yes, you pick 23 or 24, not both. You have to pick one year, whichever year is more representative of your operation. Um, you would just include sales from honey. If you sold bees and honey, you would just include your honey sales because bees is not eligible. Bees are not eligible. Um, do we have any new questions? We didn't have the two other crops in 23. George, we didn't have the two other crops in 23. That's a good question. So you only produced one, a certain type in 23, and then you added some in 24, but you did not have full revenue for 24, I think was the original question. Um, that'll be a specific case. Reach out to me or your county office and we'll work with you. Because again, that's a very specific case. New producer, we never participated in a program like this. Proceeding in payment. My question to Nicole would be, are you are you in the process to grow the crop in 2025 or to sell the crop in 25 would be the question for that. If you didn't sell, you took a break and you did not have sales for 23 or 24, then yes, you would be 25 new producer because you didn't have any sales at all. But are you actively in the process and ready to? Oh, here we go. Yes, we are, but it is not planted right now. It's not time yet. Yeah, you just have to prove that you have all the resources needed and you're in the process of planting. And then if you have contracts for what you're going to sell or whatever, yeah, you're welcome. Yes, you can use CSA membership payments as sales. Tim? Mm, am I correct in saying that there is not a real limit on what the funds can be used for, just who gets the funds? Yes. So the program is to assist specialty crop producers in 2025 marketing. Um, so as long as you meet the requirements of the program and which the requirements are to prove that you are actively in the process of growing or preparing to grow a crop for 2025 and you plan on commercially marketing it, yes, there's no caveats on what you have to use the payments for once you receive a payment.
So there's no reporting afterwards about how they use the funds, or is there any sort of reporting about crops or anything afterwards?
Not that we know of.
Understood.
Yeah. We're planting elderberries this year, but we'll not have a full crop. But um, we're planting elderberries. If y'all ever tried to read really fast and comprehend stuff in front of people while they're waiting on you, it's very difficult. Let's see half this question. The elderberry, I would have to think about that a little bit. Well, what do you mean as a projection? Like as expected sales? Yes. Will you, we intend to add elderberry flowers to honey, but they're not going. And sell flowers. So you're going to sell elderberry flowers this year and add it and use it as a um don't produce first year. Yeah. Um I don't even know if elderberry flowers, I'd have to check the AMS specialty crop table on that. But I mean if there's a market for elderberry flowers, then I would assume you would be able to include that. That's specific, and I don't know a lot about those crops. You've got my email. Yeah, we're not tracking what you use the money on. It's just assistance. So if anybody was around during the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic program that we did, CFAP, that was money for assistance. And this is, yeah, you don't have to tell us what you use the money on. There is no expected date to receive application funds if approved. There is not one yet. We have to get all the approvals done. And then they'll do payment calculations once they figure out how many people applied and how much money they have. So um, there's no anticipated date right now, unfortunately. But we do know it will not be prior to the program end. So, yeah, I don't, let me try this again. This is a program that producers come in to apply for, specialty crop producers. Um, if you grow specialty crops and you meet all these requirements and you submit an application and your application's approved because you proved that you are growing specialty crops for 2025, you get a payment. You then can use that payment for whatever you want. We do not ask for receipts on what that payment is used. You proved that you are growing that crop, and that's all we care about. There, the government is trying to give assistance to specialty crop producers. It might mean that you need to buy the freezer, but in order for you to buy a freezer, you might have to take money from another one of your saving pots. So it's a payment. You don't have to tell us what you use it for. I don't know. I'm trying to tread lightly, but like once that money's in your bank account, it's yours. Any other questions? I might have skipped over some. If I didn't, if I did, like I said, my email's in there. Y'all shoot me an email. If you want to talk to your local county office, like I said, they've had the same training as I have. And if they don't know or if I don't know, we'll find the answer. This all is very new and rushed, but they're just trying to get this money out.
This is
Thank you
excellent
all.
information, Tori, and great questions, everybody. Uh, we really appreciate you trying to answer everything
Yeah.
when you don't have all the details either, and some of it even will be developed once we see who applies. So we want to encourage, everyone to apply and share with your producer networks, and we want to see as much of this come to Tennessee as we can get here for that. We will continue to hang around for a few minutes. I guess if anybody has more questions, we will plan to post the link to the recording and the slides on the Center for Profitable Agriculture website. Under resources, there's a funding opportunities page. So we will get that up just as soon as we can, and I'll include some of the other links that Tori has in her slides that will hopefully get folks to the right places. Tori, Bailey, anything in addition?
No, I just want to thank everybody for being on the call and wanting to learn about the program. Um, I think Megan sent out the link to the county office locator. It's also on that slide deck. I'll get these slides to her, and feel free to reach out to me or your county office, and we'll try to help in any way we can.
And I'll just echo what Tori said. Thank you for being partners with us and helping us help the agriculturalists in our communities. And yeah, it was a great presentation, and Tori did phenomenal.
Absolutely. We appreciate you both so much. We we know your time is valuable, and hopefully this will help not have quite so many questions. People will have maybe some deeper questions when they get to you and to the county offices. So we really appreciate that. Wonderful. Thank you all so much.